Apple's upcoming budget laptop has PC makers, quote, freaking out. The new Mac, it's codenamed J700. We've heard about this before. It's currently in testing and early production with the goal of launching in the first half of next year. And supposedly Apple's planning to price this well under $1,000 by using cost-saving components, basically bits and pieces from previous products, while maintaining the design quality and ecosystem integration that all of us Mac users expect. Apple's going to be trying to get students, businesses, casual users who, just basically browse the web and do email and stuff. Also aimed at iPad customers who might prefer a traditional laptop form factor with an integrated keyboard. So some of the stuff that is inside this is it's going to run on an iPhone processor rather than a Mac specific chip like an M1 or M4. M5 is latest, right? This is the first time Apple has used a smartphone processor in a Mac. However, internal testing shows this chip can outperform the M1 processor used in M1 MacBooks. Let's see. Also, supposedly going to use a lower-end LCD display that's slightly smaller than the 13.6-inch screen on the MacBook Air. And here's where our headline came from. A quote from analyst Ben Bajarin. Is that how you pronounce his name? Ben Bajarin?
Baharan. I think the truth is
Bajarin?
Baharan.
Okay. Let's just call him Ben. He said,
That's awesome, yeah.
the share of Windows in with a retail price less than $800 is 100%. And then this is a quote from him. This is why the entire PC ecosystem is freaking out over what's coming from Apple next year. So, fantastic news, right? What could be wrong with it? A affordable MacBook gets more people in the Apple ecosystem, lets businesses and schools actually use a Mac rather than going for some, dirt cheap Windows PC. Although I guess it's still not in the Chromebook area, but
Yeah, the other thing is Apple Silicon chips are so good and so powerful that the base M5 is honestly too much computer for most people. If you want to be in the Apple ecosystem, but you're not going to light up all 8 cores of it all the time if you're just browsing the web, in Safari or Google Chrome, and that's your main workflow, you're not using the M5 to the best of its ability. You're not using those media core engines or, the Thunderbolt lanes that it has on it. Just the A19 would be enough. It's just that Apple doesn't make an iOS device in that form factor, and people just want a computer shaped like a laptop instead of an iPad or a big iPhone. And I think this is hitting that market. And, the other area that makes Apple laptops so much more expensive is the research and development that they do in making those, precision unibody designs, making like these custom displays and all that. Just taking advantage of the R&D that they've already done in the past to assemble a computer out of old parts. It'll just have a basic rectangular screen that the MacBook Air had before it became the M2 MacBook Air. Probably the 13.3-inch one. It'll use the same shell, like with the tapered design that it had before. They don't need to do any additional R&D to make those parts work. They've been making them for the 8 years before that. So that'll bring the price down as well.
you think it'll have the exact same form factor as like the M1 MacBook?
I bet it'll look exactly like the M1 MacBook Air.
Which is a gorgeous machine. I mean, looking at one right now,
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, the industrial design's top notch. Yeah, it's like I mean, but the Apple already kind of competes, doesn't it, in the sort of sub $800 category? I mean, the M4 MacBook Air right now is on sale on Amazon for 750, I believe.
Yeah, on sale
And
on
it's been
Amazon. It's like 150 off the list, right?
yeah. I guess if you're talking about list price, yeah,
And
that's fair to say. But
they they were selling older M1 MacBook Airs at Walmart for a while, right? They tested that at I can't remember what the price point was, 650 or something.
yeah,
But
right.
those are all through Apple's secondary channels. I think this is maybe offering a product on Apple.com or for the people who walk into an Apple store who are like, I want to buy a MacBook. What's the cheapest one you have? And they say, well, it's $1,000 or, $900 if you have an, education discount. But, this is offering more
Yeah,
first party solutions for the people who want something new. They don't want to buy a used old thing. Because again, like
yeah,
you can get the M1 MacBook Air for $650 and, the M1 has more cores and a few extra features, but it's also not as good at single core performance. And at the low end of, computing needs, single core performance is what matters more than multi-core.
Yeah,
So,
and just to be clear, what Carmen said is well below $1,000. I mean, MacBook Air is already $999 straight from Apple. So for this to be, really attractive, what are we talking about? 600, 700 bucks? Could they possibly go that low?
my guess after thinking about this for a little while is it'll be $699 full price, and then in the education store it'll be $649.
That sounds like a reasonable guess.
And that would be the cheapest MacBook Apple has ever made, and it would be only slightly more expensive than the Mac Mini. Like I think that price makes perfect sense. It won't be as low as some people are hoping. Like, it's not, Apple's not going to make a $500 MacBook. Sorry.
You can pick up an iPad, can't you, with a Magic Keyboard for 600 bucks? That would be the closest.
Yeah, the cheapest way you could do that is the entry level iPad, which is I think 330, and then the special keyboard folio they have for that isn't as nice as the full size Magic Keyboard, but you add that and I think that's like what, $200, and that's, roughly the same ballpark. But again, there are a lot of old fashioned people who, don't know that an iPad would be better for them, and they're like, "Oh no, I want a laptop." And they want a laptop that looks like a
Old-fashioned.
laptop.
That's uncharitable.
Focus, yeah. It's
Or they just want something, a reasonable sect of people who want, a real desktop operating system in Mac OS.
right, yeah, right, totally, yeah. I mean, like you said before, there's that huge amount of, 40 years of investment in this, isn't there, basically? So, but it's, I mean, if you look, one of the interesting things about, if you look every day we publish, today in Apple history, and we look back often at like, notable machines that were launched on that particular day in Apple history, and some of them are crazy prices, like, they often were $7,000, $8,000, for what looks like a fairly middling machine these days. I mean, even at the time when it was released, it was a fairly sort of middle of the road machine. It wasn't even the super high end stuff. The prices have come down like crazy. It's like TVs, isn't it? To get a big flat screen TV used to cost $1,000. Now you go pick one up for a few $100 at Walmart or Best Buy. Same thing is happening with machines, isn't it? Computers. It's the prices have come down really low. And this isn't going to be any. I remember an interesting quote from Johnny Ive and Steve Jobs when they were asked. Steve Jobs, I think, was asked, why didn't they make a Chromebook? Why didn't they make a cheap or netbook? I think it was at the time. The cheap sort of low end offerings, and he said, "Well, we just can't make a good one, and we can't make a good computer at that price." And but that has always been Apple's philosophy, I think, isn't it? Like it can't be something that's just slapped together that's really cheap and embarrassing. This will be a nice machine if it comes in that same chassis, like Lewis said, with it, the same body as the MacBook Air. I mean, the industrial design on it is top notch. It's absolutely beautiful, and the keyboard is fantastic. The touchpad is fantastic. I mean, if they can deliver something like that at this price, it's crazy. It's mad.
Yeah, and going back to Apple history, like, there are a lot of famous old Macs, like the Quadra 400 or 800, the Mac 2X, the
Wicked
Performa
fast.
9600. All of those expensive computers are the ones that Apple barely sold any of. If you go on like the secondhand market and see what's on Facebook Marketplace now, what do people have? What are the Macs that you find on eBay? It's all of the cheapest Macs. The Macintosh
Cheap ones, yeah.
Classic, which the Macintosh Classic was the first Macintosh under $1,000. Adjusting for inflation, it was still more like $2,500 today, but still, the cheapest Mac is like the most popular Mac, and it always will be.
Well, that's what I
So,
mean. It's like the cheapest Mac at the time, $2,500, and now they're talking about what a fifth of that.
yeah.
It's
Or the original iMac, which is supposed to be like the computer that brought the internet to the masses. The iMac, since the original one, has always floated around $1,300. Well, go back to 1998, $1,300 is like $2,000. So,
right.
yeah.
I saw an interesting. I mean, as an aside, I saw an interesting graphic saying that the iMac, right? I mean, Apple's prices they often don't change, do they? Even when the cost of the components I think the iMac has been priced at what is it, $1,200 for more than a decade or more. Anyway, yeah, it's cool stuff. I think when is it supposed to be coming out?
Next year, first half of next year.
First half. Yeah. So what does that mean? Probably spring, right?
Yeah,
When they do these things.
it's wild to think that an iPhone chip can outperform the M1. So, like, this little budget machine that they release is going to be better than the MacBook Air that I use every day. Wow. I can upgrade by downgrading.
Yep.
Right.
It'll be an exciting
Yeah.
Mac. It'll, who would have thought like 10 years ago that Apple would be expanding the Mac lineup to like double the size that it was in 2015? Like they're adding so many, the Mac Studio, they added a new model there. They're adding a new model of laptop. Like this is an exciting time to be a Mac user.
For sure, for sure. Except for the Mac Pro, of course.
RIP.
Right.